Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Sean.
And I'm Chad.
And there is an absolute treasure trove of information in the news right now.
Yeah, Israel's making some headlines.
Yeah, they sure are. So let's talk about pagers, which I didn't know anybody was using anymore.
I didn't either. Pagers?
Right? I guess.
Where do they call them back from? Like, where do you stop?
I don't know. So apparently the article is on Tuesday, the Israelis detonated 3,000 encrypted pagers on Hezbollah operatives.
Yeah, I think they killed 32 people and injured like 2,700 people.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people.
So and it sounds like that that death toll is actually higher than what's being reported, which would be no surprise, right? And then yesterday, at some of the funerals, they started blowing up radios,
walkie-talkie radios.
Yeah, so, incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this, really. I mean, I went all the way back, and I'm like, how did they even make this happen, right? So I found an article in an Israeli newspaper that talked about this shell company, and I think it was Hungary that they set this.
Yeah, it was a Hungarian firm. Yes, correct.
Yeah, so this is a long-term play. This isn't, we just figured out a way to do this, and it's been in our back pocket. Like this was planted. This was long term. So
yeah, I think this is months to years for sure. This is something that probably the Mossad was involved with. So if that's true, like if it really is a shell company, this might not have been a supply chain attack per se if they manufactured them.
Right. I think they manufactured them, but they were also manufacturing pagers and walkie-talkies for just the general public that weren't tampered with. Right. So it was
gotcha.
Really interesting article. I mean, how it's it's still unfolding, right? But just incredible. I mean, I feel like it's really just up the ante in the cyber game. And, there's a lot of technology that's used in war, from drones to targeting to anything. But this is I feel like a whole nother level.
Well, and I feel that a lot of people even listening, are thinking, well, what about my iPhone or my Android? I want to say that those things are safe, or your laptop, right? But I mean, these were devices that had batteries. Right. And, those batteries were either compromised in a way that they were able to inject a chemical into the battery.
Well, I think these actually had like ounces of explosive in them.
In it.
So,
okay.
Just remarkable, really. I mean,
right.
The sophistication of this attack, the secrecy involved in it, and then the execution of it is, I think, pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. And I've made the analogy too, of course, because I'm Mr. Analogy. This attack, those 3,000 devices, those 3,000 pagers that blew up, the analogy is everything that we've been talking about on this show and on our YouTube channel about Volt Typhoon and a lot of these, attacks. As a matter of fact, there was another one, another Volt Typhoon-esque incident that happened that we'll have to talk about on another episode. This is the equivalent of that. So if you looked at what happened with 3,000 devices being detonated over the last 5 to 8 years, nation states have been getting access to our critical infrastructure and putting devices in malware that's sleeping, right, and in certain areas, so that when China and Taiwan go to war and the U.S. intervenes, then they're going to use that. They're going to hit a button, and all of those, all that hidden malware that's in our critical infrastructure is going to detonate.
Right.
Yeah, I hate to explain it like that, but
yeah, I mean, this has had a pretty substantial impact. I mean, they've killed some high-ranking officials.
Right.
It's had some unintended consequences. I think some fallout just from people being nearby.
Correct.
But it's seriously disrupted their communication network.
Right.
So,
well, if I was Hezbollah, I probably would, not start my car, and I'd probably throw out my Keurig, my refrigerator, my TV, and anything else that's hooked to any piece of technology.
Right.
And it's like, what do? Do they go back to like pen and paper and the horse, the camel? Like sending the news,
messenger pigeon. I don't know. So, but I mean, I think the Hezbollah leaders were saying to bury your phones or destroy them, right? So then they went to these pagers, but it's just Wow. But to your point with like Volt Typhoon, like this has seriously disrupted their communication network.
Yeah.
If the water turns off, if the electricity's turned off for extended period of time, that's going to be a problem here in the United States. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What's up with Fortinet now?
So there was a Fortinet breach. Sort of Fortinet breach. I think it finished, and initially it was through a third party, but then it was like
was Azure SharePoint site?
I think so. That was left open or didn't have the right permissions on it. So
right.
Who was the hacker that did that one?
Are you setting me up? It was called FortiBitch. I know. That's the name. I don't come up with these names.
It's on the paper.
You made me say that.
I set you up for that one. I was real excited about that one when I saw it.
Yeah, so they're saying that 440 gigs of data was taken, but that they said that it represents 0.3% of the client base, and the only problem with that number is we don't know the number of clients.
I think it was limited to like Asia.
APAC, yes, it was limited, correct.
But I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, there's unprotected storage buckets out there on Amazon, Azure, all over the place that people just really don't even know about, right? So
right, there's some technology out there, which is funny because Fortinet actually sells it called CASB. Have you heard of CASB?
Never heard of CASB.
Cloud Access Service Broker.
Okay.
So the theory behind CASB is that you set up a CASB device, a server, in the cloud, ironically, and then you point all of your cloud applications to it. So things like Azure S3, Office 365, maybe Dropbox, and all this stuff. And instead of you accessing the third-party cloud directly, you access it through the CASB. CASB is supposed to come with a lot of security checking capabilities. So in theory, with the right CASB device, that you would be able to detect unprotected or misconfigured S3 buckets or OneDrive folders and those types of things. So Fortinet made an acquisition a while back for a CASB, but there's a lot of commercial CASBs, CASB as a boy, Cloud Access Service Broker. There are a lot of third-party CASBs out there that this is supposed to resolve. So I only say that it's very interesting that we keep hearing about these third-party misconfigurations, and I've heard no mention of the technology called CASB.
Well, you just brought it up, and I was like, no, I've never heard of CASB. Like, what was it called? CASB?
I literally think it was FortiCASB, which it would be. But there's some bigger ones out there too. I don't know the name of them, but it's not talked about a lot. So I don't know if that's just more of a higher end tool set that larger organizations use, but that's the theory behind it.
Huh. I'm going to take a look at that. I didn't know that was out there. So
yeah. All right. What else we got in the news? More Israel stuff.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So Apple dropped the spyware case on NSO, citing the risk of threat intelligence exposure. If you're not familiar, the NSO group is the creator of
Pegasus.
That's correct. So apparently, Apple, they were afraid that this has been going on for 3 years.
It's been going on for a long time.
So they were afraid of that if this was to go to trial and it really starts moving, that they were afraid that some trade secrets from Apple would be exposed.
Right. Basically how they're trying to defend against Pegasus and NSO would be exposed when they were giving out like their trade secrets. So
I also think they weren't a big fan of the bad press.
Yeah, I don't think Apple really never is a fan of bad press.
No, because this definitely has some negative connotation to it, right? I mean, if you're, we could do a whole show on Pegasus. I mean, Pegasus, the grayware spyware market, which years ago, like 5 years ago, there was like one or two. Now there's like a dozen, and it's a billions of dollars industry. So, I would expect that we would see more of this type of stuff as that market continues to open up.
Yeah, I just thought this one was interesting because, I mean, to me, Apple kind of decided the risk isn't worth the reward here. We're just going to walk away. So,
right.
See you later.
And I honestly think that NSO might be on its last leg anyway, from what I've read. I think they were hedging it on that too, going, they might be going down anyway through other methods, so is it really worth it?
But I really kind of think that NSO maybe is just Gen 1 of this.
Oh, I absolutely. Right? Yeah, so, for sure.
And lastly, so election news.
Yeah.
Cover that real fast. So
go ahead.
FBI and CISA put out a bulletin. Basically, stop listening to the disinformation campaigns that are happening.
Thanks, guys.
Get your news from reputable sources.
Can you tell me what a reputable source is? I'm going to trap you now.
Well, I mean, I'd say any like CNN, NBC. I try to like pick the mix of the big.
Okay.
Fox News. I mean, all of them. Not just one. Don't watch Fox News or CNN all the time. I mean, mix it up, right? So.
Actually, if you go into my office, I think one of the best things that YouTube TV has is if you have YouTube TV, if you click all the way to the bottom.
Oh, the 4 thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I keep a quad screen up on my TV in my office usually of all the news outlets. So I think I monitor MSNBC, CNN, BBC News, and Fox.
Yeah. And they do that for you. So they give you a nice little balance.
They do. Yeah. And it's very interesting. I don't know about a balance, but I mean, that's pretty weighted. But anyway, it's still interesting to see like just how some of the headlines when it breaks. It's interesting to see how they all catch them or don't.
Right.
It's interesting to see when one of them runs something really heavy and the others have no mention of it whatsoever. So I don't know, but yeah, no, I get what they're saying. So I was in Washington D.C. last week, like we talked. We talked about that. And Jennifer Griffin with Fox News was our keynote at one of our luncheons. And Jennifer is the Pentagon correspondent for Fox News. This actually was something that she brought up. She said, as a journalist, there used to be all these, reputable sources and ways that we would get our information. And she goes, it's become so convoluted and so cloudy, especially with deep fakes and stuff like that. She's like, a lot of these like sources that we thought were reputable at the time, have turned out to be not as reputable. So she said, as far as like a journalist reporting, she said it's atrociously difficult.
Yeah. I would just say if you're getting most of your news from Facebook or Reddit, occasionally go to that next link and say, was this really on CNN or
right.
a news outlet, or did somebody just make this up?
Well, and I think that's a tactic too. Like when you're talking about deep fakes, somebody, like if you see something, let's say you were to see a clip of a politician speaking and saying something that was controversial, right? Not that would ever happen.
Right.
But one way to detect on whether that was an AI deep fake or not would be to like go to YouTube and see if you can find another angle of the press conference or whatever that recording was.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are just little things that you can do to try and validate what you're seeing, right? But it's definitely that counter source thing.
Right. I mean, anybody can put whatever they want out there, right? So it's hard to police that, and it's just check your sources.
Yeah, absolutely. So. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with everybody next week, and we'll see where the headlines take us then.
We'll see you next time.